clearly is a very powerful pedagogical tool.
It's much more tangible than something you read in a book.
To live the things and be immersed in it.
A little bit of time travel on the cheap.
We're passionate about sharing the history with the public.
And interacting with the public, just getting to, talk to people about something that you're passionate about.
When we go through school and you get that snapshot of history, whatever is being taught at that time, but it's very cursory. People come out here, especially later after they've had some life experiences, and all the things they learned about in school start to make sense to them.
You can show people a skill, when you can show people something you're doing. Again, that's something that you can't get in a book.
Opened as Jamestown Festival Park for the 350th anniversary of the landing back in 1957, and Parks and Recreation ran the site for a long time before the Department of Education took it over. And
when you look at our mission statement, that's the first thing that's in there, to promote an awareness to the public of the importance of these elements and how the different cultures came together here and how that affects our situation today. That's education. That's in a nutshell.
So we're teachers, and so along those lines we have a methodology that we like to use, which is hands-on and inquiry method. If you ask questions and you put things in kids' hands, then you're going to get them involved, and the more involved they are, the more they're going to retain, which is important, and then the more fun they're going to have too. So that's how we like to teach.
We have a lot of training and a lot of material here at the foundation.
A lot of it is customer service related things, how to convey information effectively. A lot of it is just simply information, as far as the historical content. And other things are different aspects of different events that happen, give us a little bit more in-depth knowledge. We'll have speakers come that have some real in-depth knowledge of those areas, and then we'll use that again to incorporate that in interpretation on site.
Generally, the staff do their own research because they want to. But if they get stuck with something, if they're, trying to, find the whys of this widget, then they can send a request up to the historian and say, Nancy, help, I've hit a brick wall, where should I go? Do you have any more information on this? And then she'll start pulling stuff.
What we will do often in the wintertime when things slow down is we're given research projects to do for our particular sites. So we'll, our supervisor will say we want some more information on this particular aspect of military life, and then we'll spend time researching that, write it up, it'll go through curatorial for approval. And then once we get that approval, we'll share it with the rest of our staff and start incorporating that into interpretation.
We do demonstrate the same technology, the skills, cook the same dishes, we wear the clothes to the best that law will allow us. In some cases, the interpreters in the Indian village wear a little bit more than the Powhatans would have worn back then. But we're doing the same stuff, but we do it in a third-person sense.
Instead of first person, the difference being first person, you're in character, you can't break character. Third person, we're in character, but we break character so we can interact with you and relate with you on terms so that you understand.
Kindergarteners, first graders, second graders are coming out to learn about Indians because that's part of what they do for their first and second grade SOLs. Some of them that are very young are really kind of at the educational stage of what color is my pumpkin. They have to work with very concrete ideas, and it's really helpful for us as teachers to be able to do compare and contrast with the kids with things that they're familiar with today.
I'm the adjutant of Jaegers Battalion, Rogers Rangers, French and Indian War. We're the largest and oldest continuous operating reenacting group in the Northern America. We've been together about 56 years now, 57 years as a group. We've only had 2 commanders in all that time. There's over 900 members to the battalion. We're in 14 states, 3 international countries. Every time we go out, we set up displays so that as the public comes through, you're not only out on a battlefield doing a bang, bang, bang reenactment, opposing forces type of thing, so they can see what it was like for the combat, but you're actually showing them what it was like in camp life, and what did the average soldier do and look like. So you're always trying to get an authentic persona. Sometimes they're asked to go out and talk to school groups at schools, usually 4th and 5th grades, or sometimes we'll go out and talk to adult groups, things like Rotary and the Legion, or whoever would like to have a speaker, and we'll always talk on a specific topic of history.
We're always trying to work to perfect what we're doing right now. You start with a given base of knowledge of what you learned and perhaps what you grew up in learning, and then you continue to add to that as you grow older.
We learn by listening to other reenactors, because they could really kind of get you on track for sort of the basic knowledge, what kind of questions people ask. And they had done a lot of research over time and shared their knowledge back and forth.
Yeah, I've got an appalling, collection of books on the period and the subject, and
oh yeah, full bookshelves, 3 or 4 shelves on Civil War, another 3 or 4 or so on Revolutionary War stuff. And
we have no wall space in our house because everything is books. We do a lot of research on the period in general, specific aspects of it.
The documentation that was actually compiled by, or books that were written by Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and others. That's extremely important to what we do.
Philosophy here at camp is we can't say anything unless you can prove it from a primary source someplace. And I've gone through a lot of changes, along with a lot of the other members too. At one time we might have said somebody did this, a certain thing in a certain way, but then we said no, we can't find any proof for it, so we drop it from the routine. We only present to the public what we know to be historically true.
Rockefeller began building Williamsburg in the 30s. In the 1950s, a bastion of a kind of right-wing, patriotic American history. In the 1970s, it was overtaken by or caught up with newer kinds of history making, specifically black history, critical histories of the U.S. We did field work there from about 1989 to about 1991, and at that time they employed 3,000 people. They probably employ fewer today. And as you know, they boast about having 500 or 600 buildings. Only a few of those are big exhibition buildings, but it's a big, complicated corporation. And then they have the whole, as you know, the business side of the house.
It thought of itself as a two-sided organization, with the business side and the education side. And like universities or like other museums, the question always is, what runs the show? Do the business people call the shots, or do the culture people call the shots? And for the most part at Williamsburg, they always wanted to say, and for the most part do say, that education calls the shots.
It's not so much that the corporate hierarchy in a heavy-handed way controls the historian's message. It's more that the corporate hierarchy is really concerned with what we came in the book to call good vibes, with creating with seeing Colonial Williamsburg not only as an educational institution, but as a hospitality and as a purveyor of hospitality. And in that industry, the hospitality industry, you have to make your customers happy. It's all about making them happy. And so there's a kind of tension between telling a really critical history and keeping your customers happy.
But by the same token, clearly every year there are thousands of people who go to Williamsburg who learn and who have their minds changed and their lives changed by the experience. I know from being a kid and going there how amazing it was. So I would say there's a lot of mind changing that goes on in a place like that.
They provide these employees with the documents that the employees will use to tell the story. So what you get is a very sort of modest amount of variation on the themes.
On the other hand, I think the spiel, that the interpreters give now is much truer to the scholarship.
Have people out there who have taken on certain roles and will never break character and are going to do, things exactly as they would have been given, as they would have been done on this particular day in history. That type of thing. Clint Williamsburg does a beautiful job of that.
I always learn something different every time I come here.
The reenacting performances that we saw yesterday afternoon really highlighted the shades of gray in the surrounding the Revolutionary War.
It's just a completely different time that you don't realize how, obviously you realize things are different, but you just don't realize how different lifestyle was back then.
We have, elementary school age children, and we're definitely bringing them back here.
Clearly is a very powerful pedagogical tool that does a lot pedagogically. But I would say that if you had to measure it objectively and say this is the goal I had, and let's see if the outcome happened, it will never, at least in its form now, never be able to live up to those expectations it sets up for itself. And that's not a criticism of it. It's maybe a statement of the reality of what these very complicated places do when they only have a very short time to be in contact with any particular person.
I'm convinced that historic sites and museums and material culture work. I'm absolutely convinced that scholars in period clothing, I'm convinced that those work. Somebody has to tell the stories